Hi there everyone, this is Miss Darling in the studio. I have a lot of ground to cover today, so we're going to get right into it. But let me just preface it by saying, if I have a source for you, it'll be listed in the description box below the video. I also have an Etsy store, which is full of resources for you to use in making your own. So, with that said, let's just jump into it. Today we're going to discuss pockets and ephemera, and what are pockets as it relates to junk journals, and what are ephemera. So I have a lot of examples to show you. There's no limit to what you can put in. There are no rules, so it's limitless all the way around. You can do whatever you want, and whatever pleases you. Obviously, if you are doing this as a business and you're making journals or ephemera, whatever, for other people, you want to keep in mind what they might be interested in. But my rule of thumb is just make what makes you happy, what you like, and you should find a lot of people who like the same thing you do, and those that don't can find what they're looking for elsewhere. But just do what makes you happy, and that's the only rule I follow. So let's talk about different kinds of pockets. Now, a pocket is nothing more than something to stick something in. So here's a traditional straight type of pocket, and you see that there's some ephemera that is stuck in there. So that's kind of the very traditional type of pocket. Then we have corner pockets, where you have something that's adhered to maybe the lower side of a page. It could be the upper, but I think the lower is always best because things don't fall out as easily. If you put the pocket up here and you're holding it up, you might have things falling out. So that's a corner. And then we've got belly bands. Here's a belly band. It's just a strip of cardstock that's glued from end to end, and you can stick ephemera, and this is great especially for items that are a little taller, maybe wouldn't fit so well over here, or maybe they're too wide for a pocket, so they'll fit over here behind a belly band. So here's another corner pocket here, another belly band here with, it just gives you a way to stick a whole lot more fun things in a journal that you would enjoy having. Sometimes you can write on the back. For instance, this is plain on the back, so it's a nice little card to stick in there. It adds extra space for someone to journal in. And that's important if you're covering your pages with a ton of stuff, including artwork. This is a page that's very busy, and it would be very difficult, even though it's sort of light here, it'll be difficult for someone to journal on that. So then you can add extra space with the ephemera, so they have more places to journal. Obviously, if a page is dark, you can't really write on it, but the lighter they are, like here's a wonderful space someone could write on. But there's plenty of ephemera in here that adds to the interest and the fun of the journal and gives more places for people to journal in. I forgot there's also clip-ons, and let me show you what I mean by clip-on ephemera. Let's say you have an item that's too big for a pocket or kind of thick, and you're going to insert it, but you don't want it to fall out and get lost. Well, you clip it on with, in this case, just a paper clip. There are other things you can use, but here's something that is a little more involved in terms of ephemera. It's a little bit thick. It would be hard to put that in a pocket. So we just clip it on to the side of a page. And here's a postcard on the other side that was included in that clip. So, you know what I mean. These kind are very commonly used, but there's also clips that can be used, and you can get these in colors. So you might want to consider doing that, especially if you're doing something vintage. You don't necessarily want to put something chrome in there, which is very modern. But you can get paper clips in many different colors, so you can have a lot of fun that way, and add to the interest and the versatility of your journal. This particular journal was a boho theme, and you can see that it's just full of different items and very colorful. Every color under the sun is in this journal. Here's a separate self envelope. Well, it was actually a business envelope that I covered and made look very fun, and I want to include that here. I don't have that clipped in anywhere, but it's big enough and sturdy enough. It's, I don't think, going to get lost. I already showed you that. Here's a corner pocket with tons of ephemera stuck into it. A standard pocket. Here there's several tags, ephemera, that have been put together into a little cluster. Here's a little ephemera piece that's attached to the end of a paper clip and just goes on there. You can see that there's just a ton of variety. Here are 3 envelopes that are glued together and form an accordion type of piece that's really fun. It's decorated on the 2 outer sides and then just attached to a page within the journal. I will be eventually getting around to doing videos on how to make all these types of things. I tried to, in this particular journal, include a lot of variety, not just so that the journal itself is fun and interesting, but so that I have something to go back to remind me of different types of things I could do. For instance, here's a little self-made envelope. I'll do a journal or a video one day on how to make these beautiful little things. So, like I said, there's just no end to it. Here's a journal within a journal. It's was a fold-over advertisement card that came in the mail, and I recovered it, made it fun and boho-ish, and stuck some journal sheets in there, and that's stuck in here. So another self envelope. This was made out of a single sheet of paper and just folded over, and it's got pockets on the end to stick ephemera within it, some little note cards, and so you see that's a wonderful little piece to include in a journal. And here's I don't know if there's an official name for it. I kind of call it just a side pocket, where it's glued down on the side of a sheet. It could be in the center or on the outside facing in, and it's just another place where you can stick various ephemera. Another more elaborate. Wonderful little piece that has a tie, and I'm not going to open it up, but it's just another idea, something wonderful and surprising to include. Now, obviously, journals don't have to be crammed full, but when they are, that's how they get to be really chunky like this. I do a lot of more artistic type journals like this that don't have a lot crammed inside, and this is a salute to artwork and the Florentine style. There's some ephemera that's been added into here. Here's one of my sheets that I sewed on. It had been ripped there, and rather than toss it or use it for something else, I just stitched over that, which is fun. But you see, this is a very stylized journal, and so there's not as much that's been put into this, and plenty of space for someone to write in, and yet it is fun and interesting and colorful. The colors are very controlled. There's not every color under the sun as there was in the boho style. Ephemera is all the embellishments that you can add in to make a page come to life and be more to your liking. Here is another artistic journal, not full of a tremendous amount of ephemera. This features my own artwork that I have done through the years, focusing especially on the doll faces that I've done. And so the ephemera was kept to a minimum here, plenty of space to write in, and I call it an art journal, not a junk journal. Luggage tags are probably one of the most common ephemera that we make to stick in those pockets, and you can see I have a ton of those here. Some of them have yet to have any ribbon put on, but some of them have. You can do it or not put the ribbon on, whatever you choose, or you can have it plain. You can put holes in it or not. Here we have cards. These are more like 4x6 postal cards that may or may not be ready for postage. They could be used as art cards or as a postal card. Here I've done quite a bit of stitching for fun, and these were just regular 4x6 lined stationery cards that I got at the stationery cards store. I'd had them for years and never did anything with them, so I grunged them up and did some sewing and attached some fun ephemera on top of them, and you can see there's a wide variety. And so if you make a bunch of these just to have in your stash, then you've always got something ready-made that you can stick into a journal, so long as you feel it's appropriate. Another type of ephemera is this type of shape, which is more like a bookmark, and this one's a little wider, but they're decorated on one side. On these you can write on the reverse side, and these obviously you can't, but bookmarks are very popular. Then we have what's called, you may have seen the initials ATC, which stands for Artist Trading Card. And in the olden days, artists did trade. They would make cards and they would trade them back and forth. And so this is a size that perhaps was used back in the day. And so you can include these smaller trading cards as ephemera to add more interest. Here's the same idea, just in tag form. And you can make your tags, your cards, whatever size you want. They could be big or small. Doesn't matter, there's no rules. Do what makes you happy. Here's some note cards. This was just a folded over piece of scrapbook paper, and then some ledger paper glued on the inside, and give someone a place to write. That would be fun. Here's a small lined card that someone made up and he just printed off. Here's a date due. These are cards that I purchased. I think these are Tim Holtz cards, and on the back they're more embellished on one side, and on the other side they're very cool to be able to write on. Here's excuse me, a lined cards that someone made up. Things to do list, a address directory sheet, a note list, a shopping guide list. Just different ideas of things that you can either purchase or you can make yourself to stick in a journal. Here are just some sheets that were cut down and coffee dyed to grunge up. Note paper that I tore out of a commercial little notebook that I wanted the pages. I didn't care for their cover, so I tore them out and then did some stamping on them, which can be included. Here's a journal that was made up. Here's a sheet from a larger commercial notepad that I tore out and inked it to grunge it up a bit and put a stamp on. So these are very nice little things to include in a journal that give extra places for the owner to write on. Here are some text cards that this one I bought and this one I made. So you don't have to have imagery. You can do text and sayings and quotes and scripture passages and just things that you make up yourself. Turn them into a card and include them in a journal. Here we've got some envelopes. The design of it was provided, and all I did was print it off and then fold it where it said to fold, and it folds up into a little envelope that can be included. Here's the same idea, just a different design. Here's another little envelope type. That's what it looks like when it's laid out on a sheet. And then if you print it off on cardstock, you get a stiffer envelope. If I did this on like 20-pound copy paper, it would not have that stiffness. Just depends on what you want. And here is an envelope that was printed out on regular 20-pound paper, and very flexible, so you just print it off and cut it out, and then fold it in the appropriate place, and you've got this unique little specialized envelope. Another one, same idea, just a different style. So you've got decorative envelopes. You could even use commercial envelopes or postcards. In fact, I think I had one here somewhere that, yeah, here it is. It's a commercial card that I received along with a gift from my daughter, and she wrote something in there to me, and that's a keepsake for me, something that I got from my daughter at some point, and I might want to put in a journal, not a journal that I would sell, but something I would keep for myself. But there, of course, are lots of cards that you can make up. Here's something that, oh, this was the layout of a large envelope. So you fold it and glue it here and glue it here, and then it's open at the top for you to stick something inside, and you can either just tuck that in a journal or glue it in, whatever you want to do. And then here we have looks like a card on one side. You flip it over and it's a corner pocket on the other side. So if you glued it into a journal like this, then you've got a corner pocket to put ephemera in. If you glued the triangle section down, then it looks like a card there, but it could still be a pocket that you stick ephemera into. So it's just kind of another interesting take on corner pockets as opposed to regular pockets. So here you can see, I just have made a ton of tags as I go along. Whenever I just don't feel like doing much of anything else, I can sit all day long and make cards and tags, and then I keep them in this nice, neat little organizer that I also made. I'll do a video on this at some point. And then you've got the clip-on variety. Years ago, I was in the jewelry business, and I had these little metal, they're actually made for scarves, to hold a scarf in place. I never thought they were that effective. Anyway, I wound up having a bunch of those left over, so I thought, well, I'll use those in making these clip-on ribbon dangle things that you can add to the spine of a journal, that just really give it extra pizzazz and personality. And so you can see how that happens. This, I talked before in a video about dangles that are made off of the center of a signature page. This was some die-cut keys that I glued to fabric and then attached down here. So there's two of those in this journal that hang down at the bottom. But you can use all sorts of things. Well, my recording stopped on me again. I have no idea where it stopped. So I've been rattling on and not filming anything. I'm going to go back and talk about adding these trims. I wanted to show you this one. It's one of the early ones I did. It has a combination of strips of ribbon, even has strips that I cut off of the paper inside the journal. I bundled those up and tied them in. I've got a feather and I've got a faux butterfly, and they're all adhered to this clamp that I have hanging on the threads that I use to sew the signatures in. So that was one of the first ones I made. Didn't really know what I was doing, and I've since left the threads alone because I often cover them over and they're not there to be used anyway. So I've gone to using these small jewels that have been put on there. Let me try to get that in focus. These long things here are made out of paper, and also this round piece here is something I made, and then there are commercial little jewels that have been added, and those are all strung on a little lobster clasp, and that's put then on the ribbon. Your decision then, as you know, if you have a stash of ephemera, you have to decide if you're going to use a traditional pocket. Is it going to be at the top or at the bottom? If you're going to use a side pocket, is it going to be on the outer edges or the inner edges of a page? If you're going to clip on any cards or ephemera of any kind, what are you going to clip on, and where in the journal are you going to clip it on? Is it be a left-hand side, a right-hand side? Are you going to do something on both sides of a sheet? Because when you add something that has a little bit of weight to it, and it's a lightweight page, it's, you know, you probably better add something to the opposite side to give it balance. Otherwise it's going to feel a bit clumsy. And so that's something to think about. And are you going to clip something on? Are you going to just stuff something inside? Or are you going to actually glue it down to a page? So these are all the types of things you'll have to determine as you go along. And each time out, it's a different decision. You have to decide where it's going to go and how best to use it. So that's what's exciting and fun about it, is there's just no end to the creativity that is at your disposal. Ideas are endless. The placement is almost endless, but there's just so much variety that you can take advantage of to make your journals as full as you want, as limited as you want, as colorful as you want, or as simple as you want, and it all is up to you. I'm going to be taking a journal I've been working on and showing you. We've been making it on camera, so I'm going to be taking ephemera and actually gluing it down or clipping it on that particular journal, so you can see the decision-making process that I go through, at least on that particular journal. And hopefully, if you feel you need more help in that area, that will give you some guidelines. So until then, at this point, I'm going to call this a wrap and say goodbye. See you next time. Bye.